Here is an image of the Qatar skyline in the hours leading up to this conversation. Talk about this response by Iran. They're saying it is not over, that they will continue to respond proportionally to, of course, this is in response to the U.S.'s attack on its nuclear facilities. I want to know what your reaction to this is as this war continues to escalate.
Theater, essentially. They had to. And they had to do it the next day. And that's exactly what they did. Of course, there was advance warning to the Americans, of course, to the Qatari government directly. Al Udeid was empty. I've been to Al Udeid. I've been there before shock and awe. It's huge, gigantic. So it took a little bit of trouble for them to empty practically everything, but they did it. So far, wow, maybe 3 missiles hit the ground, but we don't know. There's censorship on all sides, so we don't know what hit and what, and if anything was hit. Anyway, it was symbolic. They needed proportional, not exactly proportional, because, if assuming those mobs were really perforating 4, though, 6 of them, we still don't know exactly what and what perforated what, and if anything was perforated at all. Anyway, 6 missiles, proportional. And of course, the message is something like, okay, I'm getting very musical these days, so another one for you, Motown. Nowhere to run, baby, nowhere to hide. This one goes straight to CENTCOM. The headquarters of CENTCOM is in Al Udeid. So this is a message, and this is a message to all the GCC countries, not only Qatar, which I'm sure they totally understood. The message is Trump brought this on you all. And this is our warning to all of you. If they escalate, their bases in your nations will pay the price. So I'm sure everybody perfectly understood the message. UAE, Bahrain, etc. There's no indication that there will be an escalation after that. From Iran, certainly not. We were talking about this even yesterday, even before the attacks. And apparently there are some echoes from Washington that the circus ringmaster does not want an escalation. So maybe this theater stops now. We don't know. What does not stop, and it's the most important part, it's what happened this morning. This morning, Iran tested and launched missiles they haven't launched before, like the Ghadr. They launched more Fatah 1s. They launched more Haji Qassems. And this is just the beginning. Their strategy is concentrated meticulously on basically destroying as much as they can of the Israeli economy and essentially paralyzing the Israeli economy. They have a window of 2 to 3 weeks ahead of them, which it looks very, very promising from the IRGC point of view. And I'll give you the one information that tackles it all. This came from Channel 11 in Israel. They are usually very well informed what goes on in the genocidal cabinet, let's put it this way, Mossad, Shin Bet, all that. Apparently, the Israelis sent a formal request to Tehran to end the war now. The missile war, let's put it this way. And the Iranian response is, no, it ends when we decide it ends. Mm-hmm. Once again, you start a war and you know how to finish. This is what we get. And the genocidals are getting exactly what they did not bargain for. So the next 2 to 3 weeks are going to be crucial. We should not forget that the Iranian strategy after the first 48 hours, and they were stunned by the Israeli attack, they reprogrammed the whole thing. They replaced the whole chain of command. They start working 24/7. They got their act together, and that's it. Okay, we're going to strike all the key nodes of Israel, in fact. So now this is not strategic patience anymore. It's calculated strategic deterrence and offense, which is exactly what they're doing. And this morning proved it. This could be the beginning of some devastating extra attacks, including new targets that they didn't hit before, like the port of Ashdod and power plant close to Ashdod as well. So they can disable all of Israeli ports whenever they want it. It's on the way. Not to mention they already bankrupt a lot. Doesn't count anymore. They can disable Ben Gurion Airport. Not very hard. It's already started. They already disabled Rafael, which is the Israeli equivalent of Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, etc. They already disabled the local MIT, the Weizmann Institute. And the list goes on. So this is their strategy. There will not be a frontal attack against the US because they know it's suicidal. Obviously, you cannot frontally attack an empire with zillions of weapons and zillions of nuclear weapons as well. So it's a very Persian strategic decision, calculated, very sophisticated, gradual. They do have missiles for at least 6 months. We try to confirm this virtually on an everyday basis. And yes, they do have enough missiles. If they keep the rate of the bombing for the past few weeks, they can go on for at least 6 months. And what really happened in Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan, there are some nuggets here and there popping up. And it's fascinating because basically they were empty. All of them. Everything that was important had already been evacuated. In Fordo, totally, members of the Majlis, the Iranian parliament, several of them had already said, okay, everything was evacuated days before, all the way to 48 hours before a possible attack during the weekend. By the way, Cy Hirsch, once again, for whom I have enormous respect, he got the scoop. Why? Because they gave him the scoop. Some of the people directly responsible. It's very simple. Cy Hirsch has the biggest Rolodex in Washington, so he can call everybody, and everybody can call him. And that's why he published the scoop. I discussed this with this guy is really top old school deep state, now retired, of course, and not in the US anymore, in Europe. But he knows everything that goes on, and he has still all his surviving, let's put it this way, contacts in the Beltway and in the deep state. He said, yes, they chose Cy because they had, okay, he's going to have the scoop, and that's what's going to happen. And what Cy published is exactly what happened with few differences. Of course, if you read Cy's piece before the attack, what strikes us is the wishful thinking and the absolutely pathological dreams of this Zionist axis. It's what they really want, of course. And what they really want is the real target, objective, and configuration of this war. This war is about regime change in Iran. This is the major story. This is the headline. And everything is a consequence of that. So now we have all they thought that they had all the props, including the American intervention, which is something that the Ziocons and the neocons have been dreaming about since at least the late 90s, as we all know. So now it falls on their lap. But what to do about it? And they never counted on Iranian response. They never could imagine that this thing would be a flop. That's what it looks like as it stands. They thought that blow after blow will lead towards an insurrection inside Iran, leading towards regime change. And now they even have their puppet in waiting, that pathetic son of the Shah,
The
which
Shah,
could not
yes.
be more pathetic. He talks in English, this idiot.
Yes.
So we know who the public is not Iranians, definitely. And obviously, apart from the American public, what we call Terangeles, those Iranian immigrants who made a fortune, especially in LA. And obviously, all of them, let's say, assets or fifth columnists, essentially. So it's a joke. It's a cheap, tawdry script. All the pieces are there, of course. What they didn't count is the ethics of resistance inside Iran. The fact that attacking Iran unified the country like it never unified it before in recent memory. Like, I was in Iran last month only, which is crazy. It looks like it was eons ago. It was only last month I was crossing Iran, literally from north to south, from the Caspian, I'm sorry, to the Persian Gulf, all the way to the Iran-Pakistan border, and taking the main crisscross Iran highway from Tehran to Isfahan. I was 10 kilometers away from Natanz, for instance. Natanz is very close to Isfahan. And the site that was bombed in Isfahan is also very, very close. Can you imagine? You were there just a month ago. And all the discussions that we had, you could feel already an incipient sense of national unity. And like, once again, we are fighting those bloody genocidals by ourselves, practically, apart from Yemen. And sooner or later, the American is going to hit on us. That's exactly what happened. It's like they were waiting for it. And of course, in terms of a war, and in terms of an American war against Iran, Iran has been preparing for it for over 40 years, especially for the next 20 years, especially since the mid-2000s, at the time of Rumsfeld's and McCain's and all that gang, bomb Iran, aftershock and all. So they were caught napping, of course, in the first 24 hours. And of course, the big thing was a very touchy issue, especially here in Moscow. Well, I can talk about it because I am a guest in Moscow, and I've always been treated very, very well, very graciously. But sometimes, as a foreigner, I can say things that the Russian media, and even Russian media close to the spheres of power, cannot. Russia helped Iran to put their military grid back together after it was hacked in the beginning of the Israeli attack. It's still a taboo subject here in Russia. There were some echoes last week at St. Petersburg Forum. I had some sideline conversations. I always bring that up, as much as I always try to bring up, okay, what is Russia doing in practice to support Iran? Many things that we don't know, and they're not supposed to be public. And that's very important. The meeting today between President Putin and Foreign Minister Arakshi, so far, the meeting was a few hours ago. It's 10:15 at night now in Moscow. The meeting was early afternoon here in Moscow. No leaks so far, substantial leaks. But something that Peskov said was quite significant. Peskov, as you know, Putin's spokesman. He said, it all depends on what the Iranians ask from us.
Right.
Basically saying, the ball is in their court. If they need something larger than life, we're ready. And all across the spectrum, we're ready to. Putin, what leaked from what Putin told Arakshi is more or less on the same vein. We are already supporting Iran diplomatically, of course, and we are open to, of course, we want to solve this diplomatically, and he has to mention that over and over again. We cannot supply nuclear weapons to Iran because we are part of the NPT. legal, and don't forget, Putin's a legalistic guy. So that's correct. But, and that's the discussion here in Moscow for the past 24 hours, it's been feverish. What if, and I allude to it in my latest column, which should be coming out as we speak, or maybe afterwards. It will be published by Sputnik in Moscow. What if Moscow and Beijing proposed or Iran requested a nuclear umbrella for Iran? This means Moscow and Beijing, or only Moscow, would take care of the nuclear umbrella. The Iranian nuclear program will continue to be civilian, non-militarized, but they would have security guarantees of the owners of the nuclear umbrella, be it Russia or Russia-China. This is a possible scenario. We don't know if this might happen. Very complex, but it's possible. And there's this element of the famous letter that Ayatollah Khamenei penned personally to Putin and was delivered by Arakshi in the meeting early this afternoon. We don't know, of course, the tenor of the letter. Ayatollah Khamenei might have asked direct help from Russia. And if that's the case, Putin will deliver. Even if they do not have a military alliance, considering the strategic partnership that they signed, approved by both parliaments already. So now it's on. The difference is they don't have what the strategic partnership between Russia and North Korea have: military assistance, direct military assistance. In fact, as far as we know, and this came from the Russians, but from the Iranians, not explicitly, but we could infer what they are saying. The Iranians didn't want it because they wanted to preserve their independence. It might have been a huge mistake. And after the American attack, obviously, this is being reevaluated in Tehran. The only way for this dementia to stop, really, is if Iran has a nuclear weapon or if Iran has a nuclear umbrella protecting it. There's no other way out. For instance, the only card that Iran has, big card, is the Strait of Hormuz. They will only play it if they are fundamentally cornered and the existential threat is unbearable. They're not going to play this now. What they can do now, and maybe we are in the first stages, is a selective blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Meaning, ships going to India or China, for instance, the two top clients, Asian clients of Iran, safe passage. Ships transporting oil to the collective West, Europe, etc., no way. That's a way of and they can enforce that, a selective blockade. So this is obviously being discussed now because the parliament already said, the parliament gave the go-ahead. Yes, block the Strait of Hormuz. So now the decision is between the Supreme Council in Iran and the final decision by Ayatollah Khamenei. The fact that we still don't have a decision means that they are debating how we're going to blockade the Strait of Hormuz. Depending on the way they choose it, Danny and all of you, it will be hell, obviously, for shippers, for insurance, for customers, clients in the West, etc. But not so much for China and India, especially. I had a very interesting email exchange with one of my old school deep state sources. And he said the CIA advised, or at least warned Trump, that the Chinese are absolutely against the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And this also played, according to him, this also played on Trump's plan to go ahead and attack anyway, because he knew that this could be a consequence and it would hurt China. But obviously, Trump or the people who are advising didn't think that the Iranians could come up with a third way solution, which is Chinese tankers and Indian tankers, free passage. And maybe we are going towards this scenario, which would make total sense. Totally closing down the Strait of Hormuz and bringing down the global economy, which is exactly what will happen. Goldman Sachs, I wrote a lot about that when I was with Asia Times in the 2010s. And another analyst, top level that was talking about it was Zoltan Poznar when he was the strategic head of Credit Suisse. Few of us were talking about that years ago, because if the straits are blocked completely, and this includes the Omani side of the strait, that it will bring down the global economy to the tune of trillions of dollars. And of course, that pile of derivatives, which years ago, according to Goldman Sachs, was in the quadrillion dollar range. I remember Warren Buffett at the time saying that this would be like a chain reaction after a nuclear explosion in terms of destroying the global economy, especially the western part of the global economy. So if push comes to shove, Iran can play that ultimate card, but later on in the game. For the moment, they are concentrating in the game in the few weeks ahead, which is to disable Israel. And that's what we should be paying close attention. And the fact that Israel is already suing for peace, between commas, is a very good indicator that it is working.